The Korean disposition. People with this disposition cannot succeed. Hello, everyone. I am Park Seni, the head of Mind Coaching, Park Seni. I will talk about the Korean disposition that you need to overcome to succeed. Please subscribe and like before watching the video. Thank you. As someone who was born Korean, I am very proud and greatly respect the heroes of our nation, and I have a strong sense of pride and dignity as a Korean. So please do not misunderstand what I say and listen carefully. Everyone, the Korean disposition. People with this disposition cannot succeed. Now let me tell you what the general disposition of Koreans is. Koreans tend to judge themselves based on external standards rather than their own internal criteria. What I mean is, I am the son of a certain family. I work for a certain company. I attend a certain school. These are the aspects. What is all this? It means thinking of oneself by fitting into pre-existing external standards rather than internal criteria. As a result, they become extremely conscious of others. They are very conscious of others and believe they should not stand out more than others. And they prioritize others before themselves. There are even such obsessive thoughts. At this point, you might think that prioritizing others over oneself is a good thing. Of course, if this arises very spontaneously, it is indeed a good thing, but the problem is that it is not spontaneous. In the 1960s, this country was very poor. It was said to be the poorest in the world. Now, if you go to your home, there is a room, right? For those who cannot watch this video, they probably have at least their own room in their home. However, in the 1960s, most people did not have their own room. In fact, in many households, 3 generations lived together in a single room. If 3 generations live together in one room, should individuality be respected among each other? No, it shouldn't. Individuality becomes a concept that seems like a social evil that disrupts communal living. So everyone needs to blend together. If 3 generations are to live in a single room, everyone must be the same. And what's important there is simply who is older, determining hierarchy, right? Even cold water has a hierarchy and so on, and then rules must be established, which is why there's even a culture of clearing one's throat. Before opening a door, adults must clear their throat, because if they enter without doing so, it might create an awkward situation for everyone. That's why the culture of clearing one's throat has developed. Why do we place so much importance on family trees and knowing distant relatives like third cousins? It's to clearly distinguish hierarchy. When we first meet someone, we always ask, "How old are you?" If we don't ask, it becomes awkward and we don't know how to proceed. This isn't something that developed naturally, it was imposed. As a result, people become overly conscious of others and develop an excessive awareness of social cues. And if you stay still, you'll end up in the middle. This is something said to students, but staying still doesn't mean you'll end up in the middle. It means you'll end up unable to sell anything, dying, and living a pitiful life. You must never stay still. There's also a saying, the protruding stone gets hit first. This is a common proverb. So in the end, it means don't stand out. You need to stand out. When it's time to stand out, that's how you succeed. For example, if a stone had the opportunity to be properly shaped by a skilled architect, if it had been hit, it could have been transformed into a work that completely captivates others. The same goes for people. If you don't receive proper guidance and knowledge from a successful mentor from a young age, it's not just that you missed out. You end up being indiscriminately influenced by those around you who have no formula for success. Then the tremendous potential abilities that young people originally had will soon be wasted, which is unfortunate. That's why there's a saying among Koreans, the protruding nail gets hammered down. If you stay still, you go in the middle. This kind of unconscious mindset is formed in many parts, which is truly regrettable. So now, we also think like this. Anything different is wrong, but being different is not wrong. It's natural. However, because uniformity was enforced, being different is seen as wrong. Some people think this way, and although individual differences are completely natural, the moment you talk about differences, it becomes discrimination. We continue to hold on to these unfortunate thoughts and live with this kind of perception. Will there be any progress then? Not really. Let me give you an example. Students have been guided and asked questions at the academy for 16 years. Who wants to present this? These days, just like we used to, what do kids do? When the teacher asks them to do something, they quickly lower their heads. They pretend to be working hard. Please don't pick me. While hoping not to be picked, they are distracted, wishing for this moment to pass quickly and to escape the situation. In the past, let's say it was, because there was only one room. However, even though they have their own rooms now, they are showing the same behaviors as in the past. This is evidence that the tendency to pursue uniformity and a single absolute value still remains deeply rooted in Korean society. However, we know that this is not the case in places like the United States. In educational scenes and dramas, it seems like kids naturally raise their hands. So when the teacher calls on Thomas, almost all the kids who had their hands raised lower them with a really disappointed expression, don't they? It's really the opposite of us. It's so different. When I was young, I was constantly raised and conditioned by Koreans, so I think this tendency was unconsciously filled within me. For example, even in college, during my freshman and sophomore years, when attending classes, I couldn't sit at the front of the seats. Sitting at the front was something only those who could break away from the typical Korean tendency would do, and I would hide by sitting at the back or on the sides. I think I had the wrong mindset of just wanting to get through the day safely and ordinarily. But if you do this, you won't succeed, everyone. As someone who had the typical image of a Korean deeply ingrained, it wasn't easy to change. However, when I was about 25, I thought that if I didn't change at that point, I would never be able to live my life in a special way. So I started sitting right at the front and in the middle of every class, which was unlike me. I raised my hand in the middle, gave presentations, and in the past, people would say from the back, "Look at that guy, showing off," right? I used to be too self-conscious to raise my hand because I was worried people would find me annoying or obnoxious. But I started raising my hand and giving presentations, and I even ate alone. I am not someone who enjoys eating alone, but I had no choice but to eat alone. When you go with a group, it's hard to manage your time. But in the past, despite that, I couldn't eat alone and would eat with others. Otherwise, I would have worried that people might think I was a loner or something due to my tendency to be concerned about others' opinions. But after setting a goal, I wanted to cover everything with A+ grades. I started participating actively, asking questions frequently, and making it impossible for professors not to know or like me. By creating what I always call a high level of focus and immersion center, I managed to cover everything with A+ grades. So, this is possible. I could impress the professors. Then let's try to impress many people in the field I want, each in their own way. That's how I was able to create psychology courses that didn't exist in the country from my 20s. Thus, by gradually shedding the typical tendencies of a Korean, it's clear that the teacher succeeded. So, everyone understands, right? You cannot succeed without shedding the typical tendencies of a Korean. And let me tell you one more thing. You can't be happy either. Not all Koreans are like this, but many people put on a facade because they are concerned about what others think, because they don't have their own standards. They lack internal standards and make judgments based on external ones, which leads to unhappiness. So, even when getting married, if you don't have a grand wedding at a hotel, people might see our love as very insignificant, right? Having such thoughts already is quite pitiable, isn't it? They are caught up in the typical tendencies of Koreans. Thus, the excessive formalities are a misexpression due to the habit of perceiving oneself through external standards. And there are also people who give up very quickly. What could someone like me possibly do? As expected, I can't do it. People who give up quickly in this manner, such people cannot escape the typical tendencies of Koreans. They lack a point of reference that they have been passionate about or considered important since childhood. And they just go by what others say or what they hear. So their efforts don't really work out. That's where they easily give up. They think, what can someone like me do in this manner? Therefore, even to be happy, it requires an effort to break away from the typical tendencies of Koreans. However, since this is largely an unconscious aspect that influences many people, including you, it's not easy to break it on your own. So, always keep in mind the concept of first impressions, and I will explain a lot about first impressions in the video. With that in mind, consider how you can remove the darkroom that has come from Koreans in your subconscious and fill it with thoughts of a special existence. I hope you can continuously ponder this and make efforts as I have explained. Then you must have definitely felt it. Can you succeed with the typical Korean disposition? Does not exist. Does not exist. Even someone like the teacher has completely broken away from the typical Korean disposition, so they must know the answer. Of course. I will tell you about it in the next video. How can you break away from the typical Korean disposition and achieve more genuine success? Please look forward to it, and I'll see you in the next video. Please subscribe, like, and turn on notifications, as it will greatly benefit you. Thank you. See you next time. Thank you.